This unit is called the Vicmarc VOD 300. It's an oval turning device for turning oval spheres and bowls. Inside the unit are two belts. There's an outer belt that runs on these three gears, and there's an inner belt inside this drum. Periodically, the belts will break and will need replacing. This video will discuss how to replace the belts. To start with, mount the VOD unit to the bedways of your lathe. You can sit it on a workbench, but it won't be as stable. It has to be disconnected from the headstock as well. The first step will be to remove the chuck or the faceplate. To remove the chuck, I like to open the jaws wide enough to fit this bar in between. If your chuck is jammed on tight, it can be difficult to remove. Use this 18 mil wrench, fit it onto the hub inside, rest it against the casing, use your bar to break the chuck free. Then spin off the chuck or the faceplate. Like so. The next step is to remove this drum with the 4 millimeter Allen screws. Once the screws are out, the drum will come off just like that. Set it aside. The outer belt is exposed but held captive by this bar for the idler gear. Those two bolts through that bar thread into a bar on the inside of the drum that you can see down in here. And in there are two nuts. One's right there. The other one is right there. Those nuts first have to come off. So remove those two 13 millimeter nuts. Removing those two nuts inside is a test on your patience. If the nuts fall off and down into the drum, rotate the drum, they'll fall into the bottom tray, and they're easy enough to take out later when we remove the drum. The next step is to remove these two 13 millimeter bolts that hold on the idler pulley. They are threaded into that plate that's on the inside where we removed the two nuts, so we can now unthread those. With the two nuts loosened, inside there's a sleeve, and when you pull the nut out, the sleeve is going to fall. This is one of the sleeves for that bolt. The other bolt has two sleeves, one on the outside and a similar smaller one on the inside. This is the other sleeve. The outside sleeve is the longer of the three. And the fourth sleeve is attached to the tensioning pulley. So once that is off, the next step is to loosen the 13mm nut on the tensioning pulley, and then the outer belt can come off. That's the outer belt. Once the outer belt is off, loosen off the nut on that tensioner pulley and leave it flop around. The idler pulley, you can put these two nuts back in loosely, or you can leave it flop around. If it's left flopping around, it's a little awkward to take the drum apart later, but we'll do it that way. So once you have that completed, the next step is to remove this plate. In order to remove the plate, we have to take out 6 bolts. Before we take out the 6 bolts, we'll take a Sharpie and mark a line across the drum and the plate so we can tell where it's oriented. So once we have a line for orientation, we can use an 8mm wrench and remove the 6 bolts from the plate. And the last bolt of the 6. Once the 6 bolts are out, the plate is only attached to the drum by the end of a threaded shaft. So that plate has to be unthreaded counterclockwise. The easiest way to do that is coming right up. In order to spin the drum, I want to insert a wrench or pipe between those 2 barrels, black weights, and I'm going to pull it downward, which is counterclockwise. To prevent the drum from turning on this side, we can put a block of wood or a wedge in here. And prior to that, we need to take the Tommy bar and insert it into the collar. I'll move the camera so we can see that angle. So there are various positions on this collar we can insert the Tommy bar, and there's holes on the inside of this sleeve. We want to line it up so we can put our wedge in here still. Just tap the bar in so it's into both holes of these 2 halves. You can put the wedge into here, and if need be, use your bar between those 2 round discs, the weights, and rotate the plate towards you. The plate is now free to rotate. And earlier I mentioned that these little plates flop around. That's what it's hitting as it's moving. So unthread this plate until the nuts on this side hit the case, which is right about here. And at that point, we need to remove this whole drum from the unit. To remove the drum from the unit, we need a 5mm wrench. We'll take out the 2 cap screws holding on this half moon retaining ring. Lift off the half moon ring with the 2 screws and set it aside. The drum will simply lift straight up out of the housing, and you can set it down on your bench or lathe bedways. Once the unit is out of the housing, you can retrieve your 2 13mm nuts that like to live in the bottom. Set them aside. Simply continue to rotate the plate counterclockwise, holding the drum. Until it is unthreaded and will come apart. When you lift that up, you might have heard a sound. Your belt is now able to be replaced. The sound was this plate falling off. It's important to orient it the correct way when it goes back on, which is that way. There's also a washer that can fall out on this side. So make sure that the washer is back in place. Set it down. You can take your new belt, put your new belt over the idler gear. You can temporarily take your 2 13mm bolts, put them through the housing, orient that plate correctly, and loosely thread it into the piece. Do the same for the other side of the plate. With your new belt on, you can put the drum back together. To thread the drum back together, simply line it up. Get the belt onto the drum. And set it into place. Once it's on, the drum should thread back on. Except that washer I told you about, it fell out. So put the washer back in. Set it back on. Spin the drum to tighten it up. It's easier to spin the plate, as you can see. Once it's put together, rotate the drum far enough till your alignment marks line back up, and then put the drum back into the housing. Once the drum is back in the housing, reinstall the half moon plate with the 5mm machine screws. And snug it up. Rotate the plate until the alignment screws come back into play. The alignment marks, like so. Once the alignment marks are where you want it, retighten the drum, the half moon piece onto the drum. It doesn't really matter where the drum is positioned at that point. At this stage, we can install the 6 bolts that we removed. That's where your alignment marks are handy. We're just off slightly. The one in behind the idler gear, or the tension pulley. Drop a washer. I have to take this bolt back out so the tensioner pulley moves out of the way enough. Find the washer we dropped in a minute. Put that back on. Tighten the 6 bolts, 8mm wrench. We can remove the Tommy bar at this point. Once it's out, the unit will rotate freely. I retrieved the washer that dropped down in the plate for the tensioning pulley. We can put that on loosely. The next step is to properly install these two bolts. The first bolt goes through the tensioning pulley towards the inside. And you might not be able to see it, but I will move to the inside and install this bushing sleeve. So this sleeve needs to go inside. To where this bolt goes through. You can hold it with your finger or manipulate it with a wrench. Or knock it right off and start over. So it's on the bolt now. Move the plate till the bolt threads into it. I think that's starting. And start threading the bolt on. It's hard to see in there. You can see the sleeve right here in place on the bolt and the bolt threading into that plate. The next step is to rotate it to insert the other bolt. We first have to unthread it, take the long sleeve, place it on that side, put the bolt through the long sleeve, through the housing, and I'll move the camera. So you can see the bolt sticking through. The sleeve has to be held in place to get onto that bolt. And it started. You can see it now in place. Now that plate has to get moved to line up with the end of the bolt. Which can be tricky. And you'll notice, if you look inside down below, if I can hold it, you'll notice right down in here, that shiny piece you see is the shaft of the idler gear. It needs to be in that plate and it's not, so I'll have to reposition that. So off camera, I had to take off those 6 bolts, open the plate slightly. This is the plate that fell off inside because I didn't get it on this shaft correctly. It needs to fit on that shaft before I tighten this plate up. If it comes loose like it did, it won't go back on without tightening it. So now I have the plate back in for the idler gear. the plate and the drum threaded together, we can insert the 6 bolts again. And tighten up the 6 bolts with an 8mm wrench. And then we can go back to putting the 13mm bolt through the housing. I'll move the camera. So the 13mm bolt, before we attach that bolt, we have to install the outer belt, which is what I forgot to do earlier as well. Just loosely put it over the gears and then start with the 13mm bolt that goes through the idler. There's also a sleeve in this idler that could fall out when you have it on the bench. If it does, that's where it belongs. That bolt back through, and then use your acrobatics and try to get these bushings back in place. It can be a little tricky. Move the plate. So you can thread into it like that. Take your other bushing You may have noticed a minute ago this plate was reversed. I couldn't line up this bolt to the hole. So I reversed the plate, just spun it around properly off camera, and now we can insert it. We take the long bushing to the outside, put it through, and then we have to get the short bushing for the inside. If the short bushing, again, it's a bit tricky to get it in, but it is doable. See how many times you can drop it. can also hold it in place with a rare earth magnet from this side, and then take the magnet out once you thread it into the plate, like it is now. So snug up the bolt on the idler pulley side first. This pulley will still move on its shaft. This pulley, this idler pulley, sorry, that's the tensioner pulley. The idler pulley, you can adjust the tension when we snug this bolt up. The tension on the belt is good where it's setting. I'm just going to snug that one tight. So the interior belt, the tension is set. The outside belt, you set the tension. I'll move the camera. To set the tension on the outside belt, there's this cam. Snug that cam down tight. And put your wrench onto the idler or the tensioning pulley. It's too loose. Snug it up, and the tension is set on both belts. The last thing to do is to install these two nuts. Again, you need to be a bit of a contortionist to get the nut in there on that stud without dropping it. And if you drop it like I just did, it'll drop into this pan and we can get it out. You could use a piece of tape on an open end wrench, get it into position, hold it with your finger, slide the wrench out, or you can continue to drop them like I am. So this time we'll try the tape method. Place it over the end of the nut, or the nut over the bolt. Hold it in place with that wrench. Pull this wrench off, and then rotate the nut with your finger. Grab the piece of tape and take the tape out. Then you can finish tightening the nut with the wrench. Almost there. Snug it right up. Then we'll do the same for the other nut. We'll reuse the tape. This one's a little closer to work with. Pull the wrench out. Finger tight. Snug it up. Next step is to install the plate and the 4 machine screws. Get the right wrench. It's a 4mm Allen key. And then you can install your chuck or your faceplate, whichever you had on. And that completes it. Your VOD is back together with new belts. I hope this video was tutorial enough to help you out. Thank you.